Look, these are some weird times we're living in right now, people. I mean, can you remember back in March at the start of this whole pandemic crap that toilet paper couldn't be found within a 150-mile radius of your house? Yeah, I got a little bit worried. I was freaked out. I need a lot of toilet paper. Who is it?
Dad, it's just my friend Maddie.
She doesn't want toilet paper, does she? Okay, not my proudest moment. I get that. But there's just some things in life that we must own, right? I mean, a lot of us have things out there that we just have to have. So hit the like button because I got a couple wide receivers that are must own for 2020 fantasy football. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there because today we got ourselves a couple of ball catchers that need to be on a lot of fantasy football rosters here in 2020. Now, before we get into these two names, which you want to make sure you stick around for, a little bit of business, I got to give away a couple draft guides, right? A few days ago on my running back rankings video, I said, hey, if this video can get 1,000 likes, I'll give away 2 draft guides. I did the same thing for the wide receivers. They're getting close. It's in the 900s now, so if I had to guess, maybe the next video I record, I'll announce those. But for the running back video, the 2 giveaways, the 2 winners, the 2 random winners of this draft guide, it's going to be Adam Bayerg, hopefully I pronounced that right, and Mason Haley. I've already reached out to them, getting them their free draft guides, but wanted to congratulate them. Make sure, if you still want a chance, head over to the wide receiver ranking video after this. Put a comment down below and hit that like button because we're getting super close to giving away a couple more draft guides. But now, let's talk about a couple wide receivers who I feel are must-have here in 2020. And the first guy that we're going to be talking about is none other than Bobby Trees. I mean, come on. Right now has to be the time that you're down with Bobby Trees, am I right? I mean, over the past 2 years, Woods has averaged 135 targets, 88 receptions, 1,176 yards, and 5 touchdowns a year. He finished as wide receiver 10 in 2018 and wide receiver 17 in 2019, where he did miss 1 game last year. Right now, he's hovering right around wide receiver 25 and being drafted in the 4th to 5th round, depending on your league size. But why? I'll tell you why. 100%. It's name value. He doesn't get the click, so people don't talk about him. He's not that sexy. Well, F that. We're all about winning games this year, and we need some dang Bobby Trees. Now, I've said for weeks that I love Cooper Kupp, and I expect the cup to runneth over this year also in 2020, but if you watched my wide receiver rankings video, you can see that I have Robert Woods himself all the way up at wide receiver 15. I actually had a few people comment on that video asking why the heck would I have Robert Woods so high. This video is the reason why. But we know there's also some targets available in this offense, right? So we're going over to our draft guide. You can see I've just got a quick preview of it here. This is kind of what it looks like online when you log into it through our website. One of the sections, vacated targets right here. So let's see how many vacated targets the Los Angeles Rams had. If you click on vacated targets, it brings it up. The Rams themselves right here had 126 vacated targets, 20.6% of their available targets up for grabs. Now, 72 of those targets are because Brandon Cooks is no longer there, right? And yeah, Todd Gurley has something to do with that also, but targets aren't really the issue here, right? We're not trying to really get him more targets. We just said a little bit earlier, he's averaging right around 135 targets a year, which is among the league leaders. So let's take those targets and more than likely spread them out between Higbee, Reynolds, Kupp, Everett, anyone else on the roster you want to. Cam Akers, doesn't really matter. 135 targets is a fair estimate once again for Robert Woods, but let's not forget, the run game is what now in LA? Sure, there's a lot of people, myself included, that love the talent of Cam Akers, but that offensive line sucks. And they have the second hardest strength of schedule among all running backs. So what does this have to do with Robert Woods? A heavy dose of the passing game. That's what it has to do with. The Rams had 632 pass attempts in 2019, so we already know they like to throw the ball a lot. Woods himself had 8 games in 2019 with at least 5 receptions, and 4 times had 11 plus targets in a game. The volume is there for him not only to be safe, but to have those big weeks that help you win matchups. Now, one of the biggest things to look at for receivers is yak yards, yards after the catch. It tells you a lot, really, about the wide receiver that you're looking at. The ability to get open, make defenders miss, break tackles, etc. There's a lot of different ways that you can dive into yak yards. Well, Robert Woods finished second among all NFL wide receivers with 560 yak yards, and as a bonus, only dropped 1 pass all year long. Now, some people want to point to the fact that he's going to have some tough defensive coverage here this year. True statement. I'll give you that. But this dude, he rises to the occasion. Last year in 2019, Robert Woods scored at least 10 fantasy points against Patrick Peterson twice, James Bradbury of then the Carolina Panthers, Joe Hayden, Marcus Peters, Richard Sherman, Shaq Griffin. The guy went through some tough competition and produced last year. So even though the opportunity for Woods could be the best it's been in LA, let's not, over-exaggerate here too much. Even if he hits his average production over the last 2 years, which is 88 receptions, 1,176 yards, and 5 touchdowns, that's 191 half PPR fantasy points. Those are top 15 numbers for sure. The average points between wide receiver 15 and wide receiver 10 over the last 5 years is an average of 20 points. So ask yourself this: could Robert Woods go out there and get 10 more receptions, 90 more yards, and 1 touchdown? Giving him right around 98 receptions, 1,266 yards, and 6 touchdowns? Sure. I mean, he almost did those exact same numbers in 2018 alone. So here's the thing, right? We talk about, drafting running backs early a lot here. We've even come out and said that we're not opposed to doing 3 straight running backs in the first 3 rounds. It all depends how the pieces fall and who's available to you in your draft. But if that's the case, if that happens, it's fine. You got somebody like Robert Woods sitting right there, 4th or 5th round, who has a top 10 ceiling, but a top 20 floor. You're not going to go out there and take a huge risk with Robert Woods. You know what you're going to get. And if you go heavy running back early, you need somebody with that safe floor with the high ceiling option. Robert Woods is definitely somebody who's going to be on a lot of my fantasy teams here in 2020. And more than likely, if you go heavy running back early, you yourself may find yourself with a lot of Robert Woods also, and that's a good thing. Next guy we're going to be talking about, let's head over to Seattle and talk about DK Metcalf of the Seahawks. I don't know about you guys, but I find myself watching a lot of those Marvel superhero movies with my family, and if there was ever one of those superheroes living amongst us, it's DK Metcalf. I mean, do you remember last year, and I'm going to throw up some air quotes that you probably can't see, but when all the experts said that he just couldn't do it. He was too slow in the 3-cone drill at the combine. All he could do was run go routes. His hands were questionable. Yeah, not so much. Sure, at times, he looked like a rookie wide receiver, but you know what? He was a rookie wide receiver, but you also saw glimpses of sheer dominance. As a rookie wide receiver in a run-first offense, he still managed 900 yards and 7 touchdowns, finishing as wide receiver 32 last year in 2019. But it gets actually a little bit better. Among all NFL rookie wide receivers, he was 3rd in receiving yards, 1st in targets, 2nd in receptions, and 2nd in touchdowns. But maybe the stat that I love the most about DK Metcalf is he led all, and I don't mean just rookies, I mean all NFL wide receivers in end zone targets with 18. Once they got to the end zone, Russell Wilson was looking for him, and he was looking for him a lot. Now sure, Seattle still wants to run the ball quite a bit, but you have Chris Carson coming off of a hip injury, Carlos Hyde, brand new to the team in a pretty strange offseason, rookie DJ Dallas, 2nd-year player Travis Homer. You got Rashad Penny coming off of an ACL tear. Does he even play? Really a lot of question marks, right? A tough schedule for the running game too, especially with their below-average offensive line. So do we trust the play of Russell Wilson to get him the ball? You better, and if you don't, you probably haven't watched much football in your life. Dude is one of the best deliverer of balls there is in the NFL. a career quarterback rating of 101.2, career completion percentage of 64.5, and has never had more than 11 interceptions in a season. I'd say that we're going to be getting some pretty quality targets from Russell Wilson heading the way of DK Metcalf. One thing he does need to work on, though, is his hands. He did have 8 drops in 2019, which took away a ton of potential fantasy scoring. But throughout the 2019 season, you really saw a progression with DK Metcalf. A more in-depth route tree. He wasn't just running go routes like he was maybe the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. An improved catch rate. It went all the way up into the high 60% range. He's really got more trust in Russell Wilson because you can see him getting more and more targets even in the postseason. You have to think that he sees a slight uptick in targets in his second year, but he really doesn't need much more to return great value. Right now, he's hovering in the 4th to 5th round range, similar to Robert Woods, sitting right around wide receiver 21. Now, in order for him to get into the top 15, he needs to get around 66 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That's only adding 8 receptions, 200 yards, and 1 touchdown from his rookie year. I think he could possibly even do a smidge more. If we added only another 30 yards and 1 touchdown, which is 9 fantasy points, that takes him from top 15 range now down to top 12 range. Now, I know Seattle doesn't throw the ball a lot, but with a banged up running game, a below average offensive line, old or injured tight ends, and a very, very tough schedule where they're going to have to put up points, watch out. Russell Wilson could be running and gunning, and DK Metcalf could be the main beneficiary of the bulk of those targets. This is huge upside. 4th or 5th round. The only thing that I'll say with DK Metcalf is there is a slight gamble there. Obviously, he's still a young player here in the NFL, so you're going to want to load up on a little bit of added wide receiver depth. However, perfect. There's a ton of later round wide receiver depth here in 2020. I'm sure if you've done any mock drafts, if you've checked out the draft guide, heck, if you've been watching any of our videos, you know there's a lot of names right there on the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round at the wide receiver position that are huge, huge value. Grab yourself a couple of those guys with a DK Metcalf. You have that super high ceiling, and you are set at the wide receiver position. DK Metcalf is somebody who I'm very excited to have a few shares of here this year in 2020. But those are 2 of my wide receivers that I must own here for fantasy football. There's a lot of other options out there, right? I know Kyle has done one of these videos. We're trying to do, a must-have video or 2 every single week to make sure you have all this information before your fantasy football drafts, because remember, we're going to have football. It's been announced. The deal has been agreed upon between the NFL and the NFLPA. Football is right around the corner, so now we need to make sure that our fantasy football knowledge is up to par. If you haven't gotten your draft guide yet, now is the time to do it. I'm telling you, they're flying off the virtual shelves, and you don't want to be caught behind the 8 ball with your league mates if they have all the information and you don't. So head over to the website, thefantasyheadliners.com. Get yourself a copy of it right now. You won't regret it. You can scroll through other videos through the comment section. I'm not going to be a sales guy and telling you it's awesome. Go see what the other people are saying about it. I try to pin those comments at the top of videos so that you can find it a little bit easier. But people are absolutely loving it, and hopefully it helps you guys out. We look forward to hearing from you. Leave a comment down below of maybe a few guys that you're really, really wanting here in 2020. We would love to talk with you about it. Have a great rest of your weekend, a great next week. We'll talk to you later.